For the past 4 years, I've been running an online business. And for the past 2, I've been going to business school. And in this video, I'm gonna talk to the 18-year-old that wants to start a business. And I'm gonna tell you some of the business lessons that I've learned actually trying to run a business that school forgot to teach me. When I started my business, I went the complete contrary to the traditional way of figuring out what you want to base your business in. What do you want to sell? We were taught to find a problem, create a solution for that problem, whether in a service or a product, and then market that solution, sell that solution to an audience. So what I did was completely contrary. I flipped the business cycle. What I did was I built an audience, and then I created demand for a product or a service, / also figured out what are some of the problems that the audience had, and then I created a solution, a product, a service to fix that problem for that audience. So it was completely flipped. The pyramid was flipped upside down. And I'm gonna tell you the good thing about this. If you are 18 years old, you don't have capital to invest. Okay, you really don't have any capital or experience. The thing is, your business is probably gonna fail for the first 1 to 2 years. You're gonna generate barely any money. So why borrow money to start the business? The problem with the first model, I'm not saying it doesn't work. It works for brick and mortar chains, but for many other business models, that framework of figuring out what to start your business in, it costs so much capital, right? You find a problem and then you create a solution for that problem and you don't know if people actually want to buy from you, right? The actual stage of selling is at the last stage of the cycle, which means you're gonna have to spend all that money, time, resources to try to build the product, find the problem, and then ultimately get to the point where you sell. And that's where you figure out if your business is actually gonna work or not, if there's a real demand for the problem or the solution. Now, what you can do is you can just create the audience, right? Especially with social media these days, you can easily build an audience around anything you want. So if you have some fundamental pre-existing knowledge around a topic or a niche, you wanna create content around that, and then problems will arise from your audience. Your audience will literally tell you what the problems you're facing. And that's so easy, right? They'll just comment. Or you can create demand out of thin air. I'll talk to you about this in a little bit here, but the thing is, the audience will tell you what the problem is, and then you just create a product to fix that problem, and then you sell it to a pre-existing audience, right? And that way you have zero upfront cost, and you can just, if all push comes to shove and your business completely fails, the only thing that you lose is time. And when you're young, you have plenty of time. And what you don't have is money, so don't do the first model. Now, I hear this a lot from professors, students, or just other people in general when you talk about starting a business. The first thing they always ask is, where are you gonna get the capital? And that is the complete wrong lens to look through when you're starting a business. You don't need large capital to start a business. I would argue, if you spend 3 months of your summer working at a Foot Locker, minimum wage, and saving up a couple $100, even 1,000, you can start most businesses with zero. Okay, the upfront cost is absolutely zero, especially in 2024. If you think the cost of starting a business has gotten so low these days, especially with Shopify, just building a website, you can start selling today. Okay, it is not what it used to be. So you do not need large capital. Do not go to the bank and borrow money to start a business. That is one of the stupidest ideas. And if you do that, you deserve what's coming to you. So don't do that. You don't need capital. The only thing you need is a website, a place to actually sell. And then once you get orders in, you can fulfill, right? Now, some of you are gonna argue, well, you can start this business needs this business. I'm talking about in general, okay? The first business you start is not going to be the business you're in forever. Okay, the first business you start could just be the business to make some money off, and eventually you can sell the business or just get some money from the business, cash flow, right? So when you start the business, you do not need any capital. Build a website, and then once the orders start coming in for the fulfillment, then you can use the money from the orders to fulfill, right? This is like drop shipping, right? Instead of drop shipping a product, you can just drop ship a service even. So just do that. Don't borrow money to start business. And if you think you need money to start a business, you really are naive. Okay, you need absolutely zero. There's absolutely a way to start whatever business you want to start for almost next to nothing. So there's really no excuses. The next question that people always ask you when you tell someone you're about to start a business, all right, try this, is always, what is your unique selling point? And that is such bullshit. If you are overwhelmed, or if you are thinking about your unique selling point all the time and you just don't get to the point where you actually start the business, you are absolutely stupid. You do not need a unique selling point to start a business or for a business to even grow. As long as there's demand for your product or service, it's gonna sell. Okay, as long as people want that problem fixed, it really doesn't matter your unique selling point. Now, does having a unique selling point, if you can come up with it easily, does it help? Of course it does, right? Let's not be stupid here. Of course it does. Use your brain a little bit. Of course, your unique selling point can help you, but especially in the initial stages, you don't need a unique selling point to start a business, or you really don't. As long as there's demand, then there is sales to be made. And as long as there's sales coming in, the fundamental literal terminology for business is literally, as long as you have revenue coming in, you're a business, right? That's it. And as long as you can get that sorted, you don't need a unique selling point. For the next lesson that I've learned, I want to talk about branding, okay? Especially branding at a much lower spectrum than people usually talk about. When people talk about branding, it's usually for a business that's already been running for 3 to 5 years, and then they would brand that business. But I want to talk to you about how to brand your business at the initial stages. If you have started your business today, how do you brand it? Okay, so we'll talk about that. But what branding is essentially is branding is the biggest leverage you can pull on selling commodities, right? It's not even about the product anymore. Branding is just the affinity that people have to your company. Think of it this way: the company is just an entity, and without branding, people just see it at face value, an entity. But with branding, the company, the entity, is no longer seen as an entity, but rather there's a voice to it, there's personality to it, there's a face on the entity, right? It's much more of a personal connection with the people. Think of Nike, right? When you think of Nike, what do you think? Winning, winners, sports, athletic, right? There's certain affinities that you make to a brand. Now here's the interesting thing. You can have no brand, which is the worst, or you can have bad brand, which surprisingly, bad brand can sell you more than having no brand. Now, obviously, you don't want bad affinities to your businesses, but even if you have that, you can sell more than having no brand. The branding is very different from reputation, remember that. And also good branding. That's where you want to be, right? Everyone have a good brand. If you have a good brand, you can sell the same commodity for 10 times the price than something that has no brand. Now, how does someone who starts a business today build a brand? Let me give you an example. When I started my content creation business, creating content for businesses, the easiest way for me to have a brand for the company that I've just started is to have content. If I have a body of work, not testimonials, not things I've done, but literally content, right? Content just providing value like this. If I have content like this, people will find affinity from the content that they've watched to my business. They just do, right? If I'm constantly, for example, swearing, right? If I'm saying, all right, let me give you a better example. For example, if I am extremely funny, which I am, and extremely handsome, there will be an affinity that people make watching this video. If I'm always funny, for a comedic aspect of the content to the business that I run, right? There'll be a personality around the business, especially if you can brand it right. For example, if your website is playful and then your content is also comedic, then what does your company have? It has a comedic aspect to the brand, right? So that is just essentially branding at a much lower scale than large corporations, right? If you're just starting a business, you want to create content in your niche and provide free value, and then you can incentivize brand. You can develop brand in the content, and people will find associations between the content and your business. If you are going to start a business, I would recommend you sell B2B, all right? Sell to other businesses, don't sell B2C. Selling to consumers are extremely fickle, right? The consumers are so fickle. This is the same concept of selling to the rich than the poor. Selling to the rich is much easier because their relative net worth to what they're paying you is so small compared to someone who's poor, right? So this is the same concept. If you can solve a problem for a business, they will buy your service, right? If you, for example, if you give a free trial, 30 days, let's say it's the content business that I did, I provide content for you, I film content for you, they like it in the first month, they will continue to buy, as long as you don't get up. But if I'm selling B2C, if I'm selling to consumers of your product, there's so much things that consumers think about. And it's honestly annoying, right? Especially if you're just a startup. If you show a consumer a product or service that solves their problem, they will go out and find the cheapest option. And then once they do find a cheapest option, they'll come back to you with the cheapest option prices, and then you just become a race to the bottom, right? You're just trying to get lower prices, and the race to the bottom, cut out things in your services, have horrible delivery in the results because you are cutting out so much in the services, and then people just don't buy from you, right? So Selling to consumers are much tougher. You're dealing with such a big spectrum of people. You can't really systematize your sales process. But if you're just doing B2B, even if they're small business owners, at least you know they're business owners, so they're making some money. Of course, don't sell to businesses that are not making money, right? So if it's B2B, usually they're making some money, they're a business owner, they can respect the hustle. There's just so much benefit that you can get just selling B2B. So if you're just starting out, I would recommend just sell to businesses, sell your services. It's much easier to sell services to businesses than product, but of course you can still sell the product. So whatever you do, try to sell to businesses at the start. You hear this all the time. It's not what you know, it's who you know, all right? Your network is your net worth. You hear that, but nobody teaches you how to network, right? Nobody tells you how to, so I'm gonna tell you how. If you have some money, I would recommend, if you don't have some money, go out there and work a minimum wage job and this will pay it. I would recommend you sign up to expensive country clubs, to expensive gyms, to anything expensive, sign up to it. And then after you sign up to it, or if you want to do the free route, every time you see a supercar, when you're just driving outside, go talk to the car owner. Now, if you did sign up to the expensive gym, go to the gym on a Thursday at 12 in the noon, and then you will most likely only see people of a certain wealth level. You will most likely only see people who are rich, self-employed, business owners, all that, because most people who are just doing 9 to 5s are not there in the gym, they're working. So I want you to go to the gym at that time or talk to luxury car owners whenever you see them, when you're outside, and talk to every single one of them. Especially if you're young, they admire it, all right? Just be honest. Just go up to them and say, hey, I see you, with the luxury car, or you're in the gym at 12 in the noon on a Thursday. What do you do for a living? And then stir up some conversation and never ask for something. Never, especially in your first interaction, never ask. You may want to sign them for a client, right? But never ask them to do that. Just talk to them like a normal human being. Genuinely be interested, because I am genuinely interested. Usually if I see these people, I want to know what they do, just as a genuine interest. And then they'll remember you'll get their contact, they'll give it to you. And then usually, sometimes, they'll even give you work, which I get all the time, right? I would just say, so the trick is you have to say, I'm 18 years old. Do you know anybody who would hire me? Right? I just want to get into the car industry. And that is just you saying, will you hire me, to that person? But you just, beating around the bush. You're just putting it in a way where you're framing the question so that you don't put the other recipient in a tough situation where they have to reject you on the spot, right? They might just go, if they don't want to hire you, I don't know anybody who would be interested. Then you just leave it at that. But most of the time, especially if you're charismatic, they will go, well, I want to hire you. And then they'll give you a chance, right? And this way, you just build up your contacts list. You build up business owners. Business owners. If they hire you, go work for them. Do a good job, and then they'll like you, and then they'll hopefully support you in your future business. That is how I got my first client, many of my first clients, and I think that's great. All right, that is how you do it. Network is your net worth. So that is a practical way for you to go out today and meet some high worth individuals. I'll tell you a story that actually happened to me. So there was a time when I sold software. All right, I just white labeled software and I tried selling software. It was a CRM, customer relation management software, to businesses. I tried to sell that. And I did about 200 cold calls, just calling businesses that I found on Google Maps. And then I was very bad at cold calls. And I talked to a business owner. He had a roofing company. And I talked to him, and I did such a horrible job on the phone. And even he was like, no, he was telling me, coaching me, sales. He was a salesman himself. He was the owner for the roofing company. And he was telling me, no, you're not gonna sell me like that. And then he actually liked me. Because I was like, hey, I just tried to stop selling to him. I just stopped. Once he figured out I was just a young man trying to sell. And then I just said, hey, do you have any tips for me to get better at sales? And then we continued to talk. He liked me because I was charismatic. I was respectful, which you always want to be. And then he actually invited me to come to his office and then teach me sales. Just give me some tips and tricks. So I went there. We had a great conversation, and then he actually tried to buy the software. Right? He genuinely tried his best to buy the software, but since I was so bad and I didn't since I just white labeled the software, I didn't quite know how the software works. So I was like, yeah, just forget about it. Just forget about it, all right? He wanted me to handle all the software stuff, but I didn't know how to do it at the start. When it actually came time to fulfill the sale, I couldn't do it. I was like, just forget about it. So I didn't end up getting the sale, but he was willing to buy, right? He was even willing to refer to his friends and all that. So again, that's just another way of getting network, right? You want to be in close proximity and in a good environment where there's business owners for you to talk to, right? So put yourself in a position where there's business owners and talk to every single one of them. As I mentioned, I've been having an online business for 4 years, and that's actually a good amount of time because usually you would go to business school for 4 years, right? I'm in year 2. I have 2 more years left. Usually you would go to 4 years. Now here's the thing. If you spend 4 years just dialing in and focusing on toning your skills on one thing, you should be proficient in 4 years. All right, so this is the advice of be specific, don't be general. Don't go general, be super specific, be super focused, and just try to be really good. Develop a skill, a high potential skill for 4 years. Spend 4 years, you don't even need 4 years to be honest, you only need probably 1 to 2. But if you spend 4 years, you really should be proficient in that skill, right? Whatever it is, especially if you're just learning that skill, going actually out in the workforce, or actually just working for yourself and getting experience under your belt for that skill, practicing that skill, you have to be good. You will. It's just undeniable. You will be good. You will be so high above the curve, heads and shoulders above the average person who has that skill, right? You'll be so much better, and you have a huge body of work to show for in that skill. And that's my thing, right? And for business school, you go to school for 4 years, and when you come out, the interesting thing is you're just an entry-level guy. I don't get it. If you spend 4 years, you really should be proficient. You're just a generalist, and you're not even a good one. All right, that's a separate debate about school, but you're not even a good generalist. You're just a generalist. So specialize in one thing for 4 years, especially if you're 18, from 18 to 22. It's your youthful years, you have plenty of time. Specialize in one thing, get good at it, then start selling that services or product. The best age to start a business is when you're young, when you're 18. Hear me out, okay? You may think if you're 18, you have no experience, so that's the time you shouldn't start a business, right? I'm gonna argue the complete opposite, and I'm gonna tell you why. When you start a business, when I started a business, you have to offer your services or your product out for free, where you have to let your consumer consume whatever you have to sell for, let's say, 30 to 60 days. Let them consume it for free. You have to offer so much free value, and that is going to be the thing that nurtures your leads, right? The free value that you give them, or the test free trial, right? Every service these days have a free trial, right? People are just accustomed to that procedure. So you have to follow up on that. So the best time to give people your services for free, when you don't need a return on your money, right? The cost of fulfilling that service, is when you're young. When you're young, you have no responsibilities, you have nothing to worry about, you don't have a son, right? You don't have a job, you don't have the bills to pay. That's the best time to do it. All right, you can offer so much for free and give people so much that they are absolutely dying to return the favor. Reciprocity. However you say the word, right? It's a hard word to pronounce. People are dying to return the favor. Right? There's just something an innate feeling in us that we have to return favors, right? You can stack up a list of IOUs that you can just get from people, right? And if people fall in love with your product or service in the first 30 to 60 months, they're gonna just buy, right? So at the start, you have to give out a lot of things for free. That's the best way to get people in the door, or for people to actually give you a chance. And the best age to do that is when you're young. So many theoretical frameworks, right? That's essentially what you spend your whole 4 years in. Learning these theoretical frameworks, right? SWOT analysis of 4 P's of marketing, 6 P's of marketing, etc., etc. Many frameworks. Now, these frameworks are useless. They are useless, especially if you're starting your own business. If you're working for somebody else's business, one could argue that it's useful, but I would still say it's fundamentally useless. But anyways, it's a different debate. Theoretical frameworks doesn't matter. And the point I want to make is you are just overthinking it. There's just so many people overthinking and spending months and months and months, 3, 6, 9 months having a business plan. And I'm not saying having a plan is bad, right? You should have a plan, but there's a difference. There's a line that you cross between having a plan and just overthinking or delaying the start. Most people are just delaying the start because they're scared. They're afraid. They don't want to jump in not knowing what to expect. But that's literally the law of physics in business, right? It's one of the fundamental laws in business. You don't know what's in front of you. You just have to navigate, right? So I feel like people just overthink way too much with these theoretical frameworks, you know, analyzing SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. And the thing is, you might just only have 2 of the 4 at the start. You might only know your strength and your opportunities. You might not know your threats and your weakness, and that's fine. It's really not needed. You don't need to figure everything out when starting a business. You just have to know what are you gonna sell, right? And who you're gonna sell it to. That's it. That's it. You don't need to know how to fulfill it until you get an order. And once somebody buys, then you fulfill it. You may do a bad job. If you do a bad job, then you did a bad job. You better reassess yourself. If you did a good job, you did a good job. When somebody buys, you got to figure those things out. Of course, right? As you go along, you have to figure it out to get to the next step. But you don't have to get it all pre-planned, right? You don't have to know the whole movie before you shoot it, right? That's almost the fun part. The adrenaline gets going. Just breathe, okay? You'll be fine, all right? You'll be fine. If you are that much of a coward that you're afraid to start, you're overwhelmed, you can always just go back to the first step that I did. Build an audience. That is completely free, risk-free. There's nobody that is counting on you, committed on you, because you're just providing free content, right? You don't have customers to worry about. You don't have distributors to worry about. You don't have manufacturers to contact. You don't have any of that. You're just making free content around the niche that you want to hopefully start a business in the future. Let's say you're passionate about refrigerators. I don't know, there's a fridge near me. First thing that came to my mind. If you're passionate about refrigerators, just create content about refrigerators, right? Build a following that is interested in refrigerators. Then, for example, if you've built a brand, you can sell your own refrigerator. You can sell a service about refrigerators, or you can sell a product that is a attachment or, you know, helping the refrigerator, whatever, right? You get my point. You get my point, right? So if you're that scared to start a business, number one, this may be not the job for you. Just saying, that's the truth. Or just build an audience first, all right? That way, you don't have to worry about the customers yet, and you'll be more confident as you build the audience because you know you have some hurdles that are solved when you have an audience. So you don't have to worry about outbound or, you know, cold calling or finding customers because you already have an audience, right? There's so much stress that gets relieved from you. So try that, all right? There's always a way you can start a business. You can start selling, or you can start with content, or you can start with, you know, the planning phase, like most people do, right? Make a business plan, whatever. There's so many ways to start. That's my point. So if you're scared, or, you know, if you have doubts, or if you're whatever, I'm just saying there's different ways to start that have different pros and cons. So consider that. But I spent a lot of time in front of this camera talking in that camera. So that's gonna be it.